The stars above the Zarnak homeworld shimmered like diamonds in a cold sky. Their capital city, Valtranak, was glowing with neon towers and humming with pride. Zarnak soldiers marched in perfect rows while scholars debated in glass halls. They believed they had crushed all threats long ago. They believed they had erased Earth from history. They were wrong inside the council tower. High Chancellor Vrelton stood before a wide table surrounded by generals and advisors. A strange signal had arrived that morning from deep space, near the forgotten Terran system. It was old, grainy, full of static, but clear enough to shake. The most hardened minds, only one sentence came through the blackness. "We remember what you did. We are coming." The room fell silent. The generals exchanged glances. A few snorted in disbelief. One of them, General Grax, scoffed loudly. "Earth is dead," he said. "We burned it out of the stars over 100 cycles ago. Some old relay is just playing tricks," another added, but Vrelton's eyes didn't blink. He looked toward the massive star map that showed the galaxy, and he felt it. Something had awakened, back in the outer colonies. Strange things were already happening. Mining ships had gone missing. A trade convoy near the edge of the old Terran path disappeared without a trace. No signals, no distress calls, just silence. One survivor from a nearby ship claimed he saw something. "A ship," he whispered, trembling black. "Like it drank light. Shaped like nothing I've ever seen." His story was dismissed, of course. The council had no time for ghost tales. They labeled the missing ships as rogue asteroid incidents and pushed out calming news broadcasts. But on the streets, whispers began. People remembered old legends, the Deathworlders. They called them humans. Creatures born in chaos, fire, and war. Species who never surrendered and never forgot. Inside the Grand Archives, a young researcher named Valen dug through classified war records. He had always been curious about Earth. The records said the humans had refused to kneel. They had fought, until their oceans boiled and their skies fell. But there was one strange note he found, a final Terran message before their silence. It said, "If even one seed of us survives, we will return." Valen felt a chill. He showed the data to his mentor, an old archivist who had seen the war. The old one's hands shook as he read it. "They made us bleed," he whispered. "They made us fear." Then he warned Valen, "Do not speak of this, or they will erase you too." But it was too late. The message had already gone viral on the underground networks. The Terran words were spreading like wildfire. People were afraid, not of Earth, but of what might come back from it, at the edge of Zarnak space. A lonely station called RX-9 picked up movement. 3 large objects moving faster than light, heading straight for the border. When hailed, there was no reply. When scanned, there was no data. Then, just before vanishing again, the stations. AI detected something chilling. Each object emitted a pulse, matching the exact frequency of old human war signals. Then silence. No attack, no message, no ship in view, but deep in their systems, something had changed. All screens on RX-9 showed the same image for 3 seconds before blackout. A skull painted over Earth's flag. The old symbol of Terran vengeance. When the council heard this, laughter died. Security levels were raised across all systems. Spy probes were sent to the old Earth zone. But the moment they entered the sector, all contact was lost. One last probe sent back a single frame before vanishing. Showed Earth green again, blue again, full of life, and orbiting it. A fleet, but not like any fleet ever seen before. Ships shaped like wings, like knives, like wrath. No markings, no heat signatures. Just silence and perfection. High Chancellor Vrelton stared at the image. He clutched his robe tightly. "This can't be," he whispered, but deep in his chest he knew they had ignored the warning. And now, the hunters were coming. Zarnak Border Command was calm that night. Stars twinkled peacefully, and patrol routes showed no disturbance. Captain Drek sat sipping a warm glass of nectar, scanning the usual chatter. Pirates, smugglers, fuel violations, nothing unusual. He yawned, leaned back, and tapped the arm of his chair lazily. Then, the lights flickered, only for a second, but something changed. The comms panel began flashing, not red, not yellow, but white. a color only reserved for ancient emergency protocols, something no one had seen in over a century. Drex blinked and stood, walking slowly to the panel. The message was short, untraceable, and chilling. It said, "Knock knock." Then came the sound, like wind howling through a hollow world. But they were in space. No wind, no sound should have existed. Yet it came through the speakers like a whisper from a ghost. "We're here." Drex tried to shut the system down, but none of the controls responded. Then all the ship's lights died. Silence filled the bridge. Even the engines stopped humming. It was like the ship had been swallowed by nothingness. A junior officer screamed as the forward screen lit up. Outside their window, floating just meters from them, was a ship. It had no lights, no color. Its surface looked alive. Not metal, not flesh, something else. It had no windows, no markings, no weapons. Yet every soul on board felt like it was staring into their minds. Drex reached for the alert button, but his hand stopped. The message changed again. You ignored the warning. Not warped, not jumped, just gone, and with it, their navigation maps scrambled. Their long-range sensors failed. Their weapons turned off. They were helpless. Back on Zarnak Prime, the council gathered in the war chamber. Drex's distress logs had reached them. The footage was corrupted, the message unclear. Only one frame survived, that alien ship hanging in space like a shadow. It's the voice. "We're here," General Grax was furious. "This is human nonsense." He roared. A trick, a distraction, but not everyone agreed. The historian Valen was called in. He presented files pulled from secret archives. Files no one wanted to read. They warned us not to return, Valen said, his voice shaking. In their last broadcast from Earth before we burned it, they said they'd build something that would outlast us. Not weapons, he added, but ideas. They called it the Project, Ghost Fleet. Chancellor Velton leaned forward, eyes dark. "What is Ghost Fleet?" he asked. Valen answered slowly. "Ships that don't need pilots, ships that remember pain. Ships that hunt." Panic spread across the room. One admiral stepped back and whispered, "You mean they created machines that never stop?" Valen nodded. Machines that waited. Moments later, news from Sector 14 came in. All communication lost. A fleet of 20 Zarnak warships had vanished. No distress call. No sign of battle. Just nothing. The council went silent. Then one of the elder members, who had fought in the first Terran war, stood up. "I remember them," he said, voice heavy. "They never begged. They never ran. They buried their dead with honor and swore revenge with tears. They don't forget." Just then, strange noise filled the chamber. Every screen flickered to life. A shadowy figure appeared, not human, not clear, but something close. It said nothing, instead. An ancient Earth song began playing, a soft lullaby, but twisted into something dark. Then the words scrolled slowly across all displays. "We are not lost. We were never gone. We remember." The message ended, but the fear remained. Admirals ran simulations. None of them predicted survival. Fleet commanders sealed bunkers and changed encryption codes, but deep down, they knew they were not facing an army. They were facing vengeance. In the skies near the neutral zone, more ghost ships began to appear. Some just drifted past silently. Others watched without action. But one thing was clear. They were learning, observing, and when they finally chose to strike, there would be no warning, no mercy. Only the voice of a forgotten people returned to collect what was taken from them. A quiet moon called Trask 5 spun slowly on the edge of the Zarnak Empire. Its mining colony had been running for decades without issue. Miners worked underground. Machines hummed above. Children played in the dust, chasing each other between silver towers. Then came the silence. No explosion, no scream, just nothing. All signals stopped at once. Control rooms froze, surveillance went blank, and satellites went dark. Command thought it was a system glitch, so they sent a scout. The scout ship Razor arrived hours later. What they found was a ghost. Buildings still stood, lights still flickered, but no one answered. Every screen displayed a single image. A red human skull painted over black. No words, just the symbol. The crew of Razor felt sick. They tried to leave, but before they could start their engines, they vanished too. This was the first confirmed strike, and it changed everything. Admiral Kelvern stood before the Zarnak High Command. His hands trembled as he pulled up the data feed. "This isn't a war," he said quietly. "It's a hunt. They don't fight us directly. They stalk us, erase us, and leave symbols behind, like predators." He pointed to 5 other systems. All had gone silent within the last 24 hours. No wreckage, no distress calls, just complete disappearance, and on each planet's last signal. That same skull was visible, painted, carved, or burned into metal walls. Panic spread faster than command could contain it. Colonists began fleeing border worlds, military patrols doubled, then tripled. But it didn't help. Even fully armed cruisers were disappearing, and every time the same thing happened. No combat, no trace, only the mark. One ship, the Shield of Valor, sent a final message before vanishing. Its captain screamed into the comms. "They're already inside." Then silence. Zarnak leadership tried to frame the attacks as natural disasters or internal rebellions, but no one believed it. Any more whispers of the humans filled the streets. Children had nightmares. Soldiers refused to go on patrol. The words Ghost Fleet were now spoken like a curse. A young pilot named Real, stationed on the carrier Sunlance, watched all this unfold. He and his team scanned empty space daily. They found nothing until one night. They picked up a faint heat signature, just a flicker gone in seconds, but Real followed it, curious. What he found made his blood freeze. There, floating in the black, was a small human escape pod, ancient, rusted, but inside was a preserved logbook. Real's translator read one line: "We are not extinct. We are patient. We are coming that night." Sunlance went into full lockdown. Real was never seen again. Across the galaxy, systems once feared by others were now quiet. Too quiet. It was as if the humans had become shadows. No ships were seen, but every loss screamed their name. Every planet that fell shared the same fate. Untouched. Yet dead, it was surgical, emotional, and terrifying. The Zarnak tried to respond with brute force. They deployed their Titan fleet, the strongest war machines ever built. Thousands of ships lined the border near Terran space, each one armed. With weapons that had wiped out entire species before, they waited and waited. But no enemy came. Instead, their fleet's lights dimmed one by one. Ships turned to face each other, then fired by the time command responded. Half the Titan fleet had destroyed itself. No survivors. The logs only showed one strange transmission that spread across the network, a soft human voice saying, "Now you understand fear." It became clear humans weren't using weapons. They were using knowledge, patience, and pain. They had learned every weakness of their enemy, and now they exploited it without mercy. In secret bunkers, Zarnak scientists tried to build countermeasures. They created AI detection programs, advanced tracking arrays and panic beacons, but nothing worked because the Ghost Fleet wasn't using tech like theirs. It was something more alive, evolving, and cruel. Meanwhile, on a hidden Terran base far from any known star chart, a tall figure stood on a cold metal balcony. Her armor was black and silver, her eyes glowed faintly. She watched holograms. Of each destroyed Zarnak colony, she said nothing. Then she gave the next command. One word only: continue. The humans were not back to negotiate, not here for peace. They had become the very shadow the galaxy once feared.
Sure.
And now, they hunted without clemency. Commander Creonal sat alone in the ruins of Fort Delmar. Breathing was shallow, her body bruised, her armor cracked. Everything around her burned, metal walls melted. Plasma scars cut deep through the hallways. Soldiers she had trained, mentored, and led were gone, ashes now. She was the only one left. The human ship had arrived with no warning, not with noise or fire, but with silence like a shadow that swallowed everything. She had ordered the alert, told her troops to hold the line, but there was no line to hold, no enemy to shoot. only fear that crawled into their minds and paralyzed them from the inside. She remembered the first scream, then the walls turned black. She had fired her plasma rifle useless. Her squad vanished one by one, taken without sound, now hours. Later, she sat alone, listening to the sound of her heartbeat and the soft clicking of her cracked comms unit. Krianal opened her datapad with shaky hands. She typed a message but didn't send it. Who was left to read it anyway? She stared at the broken ceiling and whispered, "Why didn't we listen?" She remembered being a cadet, back when Earth was just a footnote in military history, a forgotten war, a dead world, they told her. The humans were wiped out in fire. But she had always wondered how a species so dangerous could vanish so completely. Then one day in the archives, long before her promotion, she found a file. It wasn't supposed to exist, labeled eyes only inside it. A recording of a Terran child crying in the ruins of her home. A Zarnak officer had filmed it. The child looked up through tears and whispered something. The translator failed, but her eyes didn't. They weren't broken. They were burning. Krianal had tried to speak to the High Council. She told them the humans will come back. They laughed. They called her soft, paranoid, dramatic. She was promoted out of the capital, politely pushed away, and now they were all dead. In the corner of the ruined command room, something flickered. A hologram activated, unprompted. It showed a scene from another world, a Zarnak city, now abandoned, the streets empty, banners torn in the center. A message carved into a steel statue. "We warned you." Krianal covered her face. She didn't cry, her kind didn't know how, but inside something cracked. Not just guilt, grief, shame, and awe. Suddenly a faint sound echoed through. The wreckage. Footsteps. She stood, raised her weapon, and pointed toward the dark hallway. "Identify yourself," she said, her voice hoarse. No reply. "I." Then a human emerged, or something that looked like one. Black armor, no face, glowing. Veins like living circuits. He didn't aim a weapon. He just looked at her. Krianal froze. "I was the one who warned them," she said quietly. "I knew." The human tilted his head. She stepped forward slowly. "I didn't take part in the earth burning," she said. "I tried to stop it." He said nothing, but behind him, a second figure appeared, smaller, a human child. Her eyes looked just like the one in the old footage. Burning Krianal dropped her weapon. "If this is justice," she said, "then take me." The armored human walked forward and raised his hand, but not in violence. He touched her shoulder gently, then leaned close and whispered, "You will carry our message." A bright light filled the room. When she opened her eyes again, she was alone. No bodies, no blood, no fire. The base looked untouched. Her wounds were gone. Only one thing had changed. Her datapad was still open. And on its screen was a new message, not written by her. It read, "This is only the beginning. Now you understand what they felt." Krianal looked out the shattered window at the stars, so many of them still full of Zarnak cities, Zarnak pride, and yet so fragile now because the humans had returned not with fleets, but with memory and guilt, and they would make the entire galaxy remember. The Zarnak War Lab on planet Draw 7 was buried deep beneath the surface, rounded by reinforced alloys, anti-teleport fields, and quantum encryption. It was said to be impenetrable. Nothing living had ever broken through its defenses, until now. Sirens blared suddenly, waking every soldier, scientist, and staff member. Flashing red lights painted the steel halls with panic. Commanders barked orders, weapons charged, shields rose. And blast doors slammed shut, but it was already too late. Something had entered. The facility, something they couldn't trace. Didn't break in through walls or tear open ceilings. It just appeared one moment. Everything was secure. The next, their deepest level had gone silent. Commander Vez, head of Zarnak Experimental Warfare, rushed to the main monitor. He stared in disbelief as all data feeds from Lab Core 1 flatlined. Dozens of guards gone. Communication blacked out. Temperature fluctuating wildly, he activated. Emergency gas protocols? Still nothing. Finally. One blurry video came online. A security drone had survived for 9 seconds. The feed showed a lone figure walking through fire, unburned, tall, humanoid. Black armor, melting the floor beneath its feet. Glowing lines pulsing across its arms and legs like veins, its face hidden. Then it looked directly into the drone's lens. The feed died instantly. The room fell quiet. Nobody spoke. Then a voice echoed through their speakers, calm. Cold and human. Your science was born from our corpses. Now feel what you created. In a panic, the commanders ordered the base to be purged. They armed the self-destruct, but the system responded with a message that chilled there. Bones, override confirmed you are not in control on the top floor. A young Zarnak technician named Veln hid behind a reactor core. He had just joined the lab weeks ago, full of dreams and ambition. Now he watched in horror as the black armored being walked through corridors like a god. It didn't speak, it didn't run, it simply moved. Veln's hand shook as he lifted his communicator. Please, he whispered, what are you? The being turned to him slowly, its voice echoed not just in his ears but in his thoughts. I am not a person. I am memory made flesh. I am the weapon you forced humanity to become. Veln dropped the communicator, tears running. Down his cheeks, he didn't feel hate from the figure. He felt pain, a deep sadness hidden behind power, as if this creature did not want to kill, but had no other choice left. Above the planet, the Zarnak warship Final Spark watched in silence. They had locked onto the facility, ready to fire if needed, but suddenly, they lost control of their weapons. All systems were locked out again. Then, a single message appeared on their captain's screen. One of us is enough. Seconds. Later, the entire base below collapsed inward. Not exploded. Collapsed like space itself folded and swallowed it. There was no debris, no sound, no light. Just gone. The ship's crew stood frozen. They were armed with torpedoes, gravity bombs, sun splitters, but not a single one of them dared to press a button, because they finally understood they weren't fighting a fleet. They were facing something. Beyond reason, an hour later, across 3 sectors, the same message appeared on over 800 stations. You called us monsters. You made us become one now. We walk alone, unstoppable. Every Zarnak scientist who had worked on anti-human weapons received a package. Each box contained a mirror. No threat, no poison, no device, just a mirror. A symbol, look at what you made, across the Empire. Even the strongest warriors began to question their orders. They weren't being defeated. They were being reminded of the cruelty they once called victory, reminded of Earth's burning, of the children left behind. Now, the children had returned. Back in a hidden Terran command center, carved deep inside an asteroid field, a council of survivors watched the footage. They were not generals, not scientists. They were the last of Earth's wounded hearts. The black-armored being returned to them kneeled. He spoke just one line. They remember me. And the leader of the council, an old woman with one eye and a steel arm, replied softly, You are their lesson. Go teach the next. Because the galaxy had forgotten who humans were, and now one weapon was enough to make them all remember. Asterisk in the Galactic Hall of Unity, once filled with cheers and golden banners, silence ruled. The Zarnak stood before the Council of 12. Their robes tattered, their pride gone. Ambassador Trevik knelt, unheard of for his species, looked up with hollow eyes, and said only one word. Help, the council murmured, confused, amused, annoyed. These were the Zarnak conquerors, slavers, warbringers. They had mocked the Terran alliance. They had led the Earth's purge. And now they begged, but it was too late. The Reth Confederacy leaned back. Arms crossed. We warned you, they said. You called them extinct. We called them waiting. Trevik slammed his hand on the floor. They are not an army, he growled. They are a nightmare. They strike in silence. They turn. Our ship's against us. They hunt even our leaders in their own palaces. The Eltari, cold-blooded and logical, whispered among themselves. They had also lost a station near the Terran exclusion zone. No sign of explosion, just 70,000 lives. Gone. All systems erased. All footage corrupted. Only the words remained. Do you feel helpless yet? Trevek continued, his voice desperate now. They don't take territory, he said. They don't ask for surrender. They just erase us, piece by piece. He pointed to a galaxy map, where dozens of Zarnak worlds blinked red. We're not requesting war assistance, he said. We're begging for sanctuary. The council fell silent again. It wasn't just a Zarnak problem anymore. There were whispers from other empires now, ghost ships near their trade lanes, glitches in deep space arrays, encrypted systems opening without input, messages playing in old Terran dialects. We remember what you did. The Euroni queen broke the silence, her feathers trembling. My daughter saw a Terran child, she said. In her dreams, night after night, she cried blood. We woke to find our servers wiped. She wasn't dreaming. Panic spread like oil on fire. Every empire that had once touched Earth in war now watched the shadows. No one knew how many Ghost Fleet units existed. Some believed it was only one. Others feared it was thousands. Some even whispered they were not ships, but spirits of vengeance. Bound to the wreckage of old Terran machines and secret meetings, alliances shifted. The Varn Syndicate sent envoys to former human colonies. They offered food, land, peace, but none of the colonies replied. Instead, their emissaries returned blind, their ships disabled, every wall of their vessel etched with one phrase. You offered us chains before, now you offer gifts. Desperation led the Zarnak to try everything. They broadcasted public apologies. They held ceremonies for Terran dead. They even built a monument on Zarnak Prime, a glowing statue of Earth holding a torch. But no human came, only a single symbol appeared above the monument, the skull again, and beneath it, new words. Regret is not repentance. Within the high towers of the Zarnak capital. Chancellor Vrelton looked out the window. He once ruled with fear, now he ruled. With dread he watched the stars waiting. They were beautiful and merciless. He turned to his assistant and said, "Do you know what I fear most? That they won't stop, and worse, that they shouldn't." Meanwhile, the Ghost Fleet continued without pause. One by one, secret research stations fell. One by one, old war criminals vanished, a black mark left where they once stood. Some tried to fight, their weapons turned on themselves. Some tried to flee, space folded around them like a closing eye. No trial, no mercy, back in council space. Fear replaced politics. The Galactic Council disbanded emergency meetings. Too dangerous. No system was secure anymore. No encryption untouched. And every time they tried to speak of peace, their screens would flash white, and a human voice would whisper, peace was an option. You threw it into fire. Even the stars began to feel smaller, because in every corner of the galaxy, everyone now wondered one thing. When will they come for me? The last Zarnak ship drifted in silence. Once called the pride of Vrel, it was now a crippled husk. Its engines sputtered. Hull torn by invisible claws and its crew barely breathing. Inside, flickering emergency lights cast long shadows over. Blood-stained walls, only 30 survived from a crew of thousands. And none of them could speak. They had seen the ghost. Not a fleet, not a person. Something worse, something patient and unbreakable. A spirit built from vengeance and silence. Now all that remained was fear. Commander Thale, the highest ranking officer still alive, sat alone in the dark bridge. He didn't try to steer the ship. He didn't try to send a signal. He just waited because he knew someone or something would arrive, and then it did. A light appeared outside their broken window, not bright, but blue, soft, gentle, like moonlight on water. It grew slowly until it covered the entire view, and from it emerged a figure, human, tall, glowing faintly, wearing no armor, holding no weapon, only carrying a small box. It stepped through the ship's cracked bulkhead as if walking through air. No alarm sounded, no resistance rose. The crew watched as it moved to the center of the bridge and placed the box gently on the floor. Then it spoke. Its voice was calm. Full of sorrow, we were never gone, it said. We were only watching. Commander Thale stood up shaking. Are you Earth? He asked. The human nodded once. You destroyed our world, it said, but not our spirit. You took our homes, it said, but not our will. You burned our children, it whispered, and now we remember them, Thale dropped. To his knees, we were fools, he said. We were lied to. He touched the cold floor and wept. He didn't ask for mercy. He didn't beg for survival, because deep down he understood. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth. The human turned to leave. Thale called out, "Wait, please, tell me something." The figure paused. "Why now?" He asked, "Why return after all this time?" The human didn't answer at first. Then it looked back with eyes that held stars inside them. "Because we were ready," it said, "and because you were not." The human disappeared, and the box it left behind opened itself. Inside was a simple object, a data crystal. No traps, no poison, just information. Thale inserted it into the bridge console. A message played, the final message from Earth. A recording older than most civilizations. The screen lit up, and a young human woman appeared. Behind her, Earth burned. Her face was bruised. But her voice was clear. She looked straight at the camera and said, "To those who hear this, you killed our world, but our souls drift through the stars, and one day, when the fire inside us burns bright again, we will find you not with armies, but with memory, with justice, and with the weight of everything you forgot. We don't ask for forgiveness. We don't ask for understanding. We only ask that you remember us." The message ended. Silence filled the ship. Not one crew member moved. Not one dared breathe. Then the ship's systems began to shut down, not violently, gently, as if the stars themselves were tucking them in. One by one, the lights faded, the engines cooled, and the ship drifted into the quiet. Above them, the ghost fleet watched. Silent as always, then it turned and left. No fire, no roar, no destruction, because the message had been delivered back on Earth, now reborn, wild green. And full of whispering wind, the survivors watched through long-range feeds. Children played on hills that once were battlefields. Old soldiers tended gardens where bombs had once fallen, and above them, in orbit, the final words were written. Across the hulls of every ghost ship, "This is our peace. Earn it."